Hey there, Stamp Nation members, Chrissy here, and I'm going to show you how to use Distress Oxide inks in a way with some DecoFoil. We're going to create kind of a space-themed card. So I have a little panel of shimmering black cardstock, and I just grabbed a few of my Distress Oxide inks. I use the Cracked Pistachio, Wilted Violet, Broken China, and Faded Jeans, and I'm just using a Ranger ink blender, and I'm just going on and kind of blending them together on here. These inks are cool because you can't see through them. They're opaque. So you get a really neat effect with the shimmering from the cardstock, and then I just flick some water on there and dried it with my heat gun. So you can kind of see I have sort of a space type background. The Distressed Oxide inks react with water the same way that distressed inks do, so it's pretty cool. So now I'm just going to stamp a few different planets onto a piece of white cardstock. I'm just using some black onyx ink by VersaFine, and I'm going to cover it up with clear embossing powder. I want to protect it because I'm going to be using alcohol markers, and I don't want them to bleed at all whatsoever. So I like using clear embossing powder when I know I'm using them because then they're completely protected and I have no worry about bleeding or running. So this I'm going to speed up even faster. I'm just showing you how I blend my Spectrum Noirs. When I have two colors that are pretty far apart in the color spectrum, they might be near the same color family, but they don't blend that well. I scribble the darker color onto an acrylic block, and then I pick it up with the lighter color. So you can see they blend a lot easier that way. That's just a little trick when you have two colors that don't necessarily want to blend. It should work with all alcohol markers. It really works with pretty much any color. Now, like I said, I kind of kept these similar, so I kept warm colors with warm colors and cool colors with cool colors. But I mean, you can get creative and kind of do whatever you want. So, like I said, these should work with all alcohol markers. I would see no problem why they wouldn't. And then I just covered it with a clear sparkle marker. So I die cut them out. I did that off camera. And now I'm just going to kind of figure out what I'm doing here. I used a chalk powder thingamabob, whatever you want to call it, because I knew I was also going to be heat embossing with white embossing powder. And there's nothing that makes me crazier than when my white embossing powder sticks to my black cardstock. Ugh, it looks horrible. So I always use like a little chalk packet or a powder tool to try to make sure that it keeps the static away, and then that way the excess powder doesn't seem to stick. Now, if you're still finding that it's sticking a little bit, you can take a paintbrush and brush most of it away, or after it's, see what I'm doing right there, or after you've embossed it, you can take a craft knife and you can kind of scrape away some of those extra pieces, but I always still do the powder. It's just an extra precaution. Now I've cut two pieces of DecoFoil foam, and I just cut them in two strips, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere them to my card. I thought this was just kind of like a fun way to use foil. I know a lot of people use foil only for heat. You know, you throw it through a laminator or something, but this is a way that you can use foil without even having to have a laminator. You just place the adhesive there, you press the foil down. Now, I did what's called burnishing with a bone folder to really get it in there, but you can just use your finger and then boom, it just peels off. And I think it's just a really nice contrast to the foil with the soft oxide ink background. It looks pretty cool, I think. It does give that kind of like space effect. So there's my sentiment on the bottom that we had heat embossed and everything. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to adhere the planets onto there. A little tip that I have is always do things in odd numbers. I tend to do things in 3s or 5s. It's just a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So I put my sentiment on using a little bit of 3D foam. I wanted to give it a little bit more dimension. And then I did the same for my front panel. I put a ton of foam on there. Don't be afraid to use foam. Don't even be afraid to cut a full panel of foam and stick it on there. You don't want your card sagging or gapping in the middle or anywhere. And keep it nice and sturdy if it's going to go through the mail. So keep that in mind. The more foam, the better. Let's be honest. So I just adhered that to my base. And we're going to put the front one on there. I love lots and lots of layers on my cards. And there's the finished card. Oxide and foil. Who'd have thought? They look great together, right? Thanks so much for being a member of Stamp Nation, and I will talk to you soon.